Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? We've got a really good crowd tonight. So I want to thank you all for joining us. I'm Bodie Morin. I am the site administrator out at Eckley Miners Village and the Anthracite Heritage Museum. And let me introduce Camille Westmont, Dr. Camille Westmont, who did her doctoral work at Eckley in Pardisville. And if you saw the article this morning in the Standard Speaker, Ken Jackson talked a little bit about that. And a lot of the work that's been going on with the oral histories lately have been at Camille's effort. So it's been really great to kind of go from, and I'm adding people as they join as well. So it's been really great going from what we had as far with the oral histories back in the 70s and 80s to where we are with this project, where it's going to be searchable. For those of you that aren't familiar, Eckley is a state historic site in Pennsylvania outside of Hazleton in Luzerne County. It was an active mining site dating back to the 1850s. It had been a fairly prominent village in the region, but not unlike many places throughout Northeast Pennsylvania where anthracite coal was mined and where companies had to create towns and places for people to live because there weren't cities here and there weren't places for people to shop and go to church and go to school. So Eckley, like many other places, was formed to create the social structure and cultural structure that was needed to mine coal. It operated as a coal mining site really up until the 1980s. But as many of you know, the Molly Maguire's film was shot there in 1968. And because it was this intact anthracite coal town where the film was set, and at the time that they created this setting for this film based on the 1870s coal mining town in the anthracite region, there still were 100 people or so living there. And after the film wrapped up, several people in the Hazleton area realized that they've got this great resource, this sort of restored village, and decided to purchase it and turn it over to the state to run as a historic site, which is exactly what happened. And soon after the state took ownership, there were several efforts to record the oral histories of people that lived there. So we're talking about the 1970s and into the 1980s, and these were people that were in their 60s, 70s, and 80s that have lived there. Many of them have lived there their whole lives. So these are very rich stories, a very rich collection of information about what the village was like, really in the 20th century. So we have the collections, the actual cassette tapes that were recorded, that the oral histories are recorded on, are stored at the state archives, along with the transcriptions of all of those recordings. But unfortunately, the transcriptions weren't all in neat. I mean, they were all typed on typewriters with lots of hand notes. So they're not accessible in sort of the contemporary sense that we want to be able to search for things very quickly. Camille, a couple of years ago, won a grant to actually digitize the copies of the transcriptions that we had. So now we have these PDF versions of all of these oral histories. So at least we have a digital version that we could store on the internet somewhere, but they're still not searchable. So this project itself is to actually retype those transcriptions in order to make them searchable. So if you want to look for your uncle, Uncle Billingham, you can type in Billingham, and then all those places where Billingham would come up would be identified. So Camille, if I can just turn it over to you real quick, if you want to talk a little bit about this project, and then we can kind of talk a little bit more about how to get started.
Yeah, absolutely, Bodie. That was an excellent introduction. Yeah, so Bodie did a really excellent job of really covering kind of the history of these transcripts and kind of how participating in this transcription process might help you. If you're interested in particular family history or looking up certain events. However, from a really broad perspective, we're also hoping that making these files more accessible, making them word searchable, bringing them up to, the 21st century, will really make them more appealing to not just people in the anthracite region, but truly to spread the story of Eckley across the country, because it's such an incredible site with such an amazing history. And these documents do an excellent job of conveying that. Just in the form that they're in right now, they're not very approachable. So I'm incredibly grateful to everyone who has either spent some time working on these transcriptions or is interested in doing that. Just the other real benefit of this, of course, is I know it's winter. I'm sure that you all are getting a lot of snow up there. Maybe it's cold. And so transcriptions are really, they're an excellent way to, engage with history, to learn something new about your community, about the region, without actually leaving your house. So that's also pretty convenient. All right, Bodhi, were there any other things I should cover, or should I jump into the website?
Well, let me just say real quick that, and for those of you that choose to do this, I mean, it's also pretty fun and rich to get to touch the people, to read, to understand the people that live there. I know, I think Janice, you sent me an email last night about, a family member that you're hoping to find. And it's just incredible to read the stories of the people that live there. And then if you're lucky enough that you pick somebody whose house is still standing, you can go out to Eckley and take a look. So it's very rewarding. And one thing I should note, and I should have mentioned this to Kent in the article, is that, they're not, these are real people in their real lives. And, some of the stories they tell can be a little difficult and a little challenging. And the language can be a little off-putting at times as well. So just be aware that as you go forward, you might find some things that are less than PG, I guess. But to me, that makes it all the richer. So, okay, so Camille, I will turn it back to you. And I did do the screen share, so you should be able to pull something up.
Okay. Oh, great. So you should be able to see kind of when you type in fromthepage.com, this is what should show up. I'll go ahead and log out to show you. Yeah, there we go. All right, so this is the page that you should see. So we've been using From the Page because it's a really excellent platform for a couple of reasons that I'll discuss here, but also because it is completely free to the transcribers. So although it does ask you to make an account, the reason behind that account is really to recognize the contributions of different people who work on transcribing. So if you choose to put in your real name, when we hopefully get these posted online, you will be thanked by name in the metadata for these transcriptions. So again, if you have not been here before, if you've not worked on transcribing before, you would click sign up to transcribe. You can come up with your own fun username. It'll ask for an email address. You create a password. Your real name, again, if you want to be given credit, you don't have to give them your real name. You can leave that blank. And then, prove that you're not a robot, and then you can create your account. So it's really quick. It's very easy. And so I will sign into my account to show you. All right. So once you've created an account and signed in, you'll still be on this kind of main page. And so if you were looking for the Eckley oral histories, you would click Find a Project. So you can see that From the Page actually hosts dozens, if not hundreds, of different transcription projects, which is always exciting. It's fun to see what other people are working on. Arabic scientific manuals, Civil War and Reconstruction governors. But for our purposes, we're just going to be looking up Eckley today. So if you go ahead and go on the right side of the page, you'll see there's this little search bar, and we can just type in Eckley. And that will bring us to, here you see a link to the Eckley Oral History Project. You might notice the Roberson Project on Slavery, Race, and Reconciliation. That is the group. I currently work at the University of the South in Sewanee, Tennessee. And the Roberson Project is the group that pays for our account from the page that has really kindly allowed us to transcribe the Eckley oral histories. So just in case you were wondering what that was. So we can click on the Eckley Oral History Project. And then that is going to show us all of these, I believe there's 34 different oral histories. You'll notice that one of the really nice things about this platform is that it actually shows you how much has been done. So here we see that the JIRA oral history is 9 pages and it's been 33% transcribed. So if you were, looking to start transcribing an oral history that hasn't been transcribed at all, here we have the Fedorsha, that's 124 pages, that is 0% transcribed. So you can also get an idea that there's a lot of work ahead of us. But so let's go ahead and click on. So you'll notice that, so we can click on this. And the really great thing is the pages that have already been transcribed, it'll show you what was written. And so, if you're just kind of interested, maybe you've been transcribing and you just want to take a break and read some other stories, or if you're just kind of interested in what these oral histories contain, you can read about April 1917, he remembers the murder of one of his uncles by the other. So again, kind of what Bodhi was talking about. It's not always PG topics. But so you'll notice that there's these buttons on the right-hand side. And so if you're interested in transcribing and you don't want to scroll all the way through 124 pages or however many pages are in an oral history, you can just click that button and it will immediately pull up some pages that have not yet been transcribed. So it makes it really easy, in just a couple of clicks, you can get to a page that needs help. So the other nice thing is it gives you a little picture of what the whole page looks like. So in this one, we can see that there's quite a bit of text. This one, we see that there's some pictures. This one, there's some pictures and some text. And then this one also has some pictures and some text. That is one of the things that I'll talk about here in a second is what to do with those pages that have drawings, because there are a lot of drawings in these oral histories, which is also kind of exciting. Okay, so this one is one of the harder ones to read. But I promise that there's ones that the ink is not quite as faded. Bodhi, should I pull up one of the ones with better ink, or should I just go with this one?
Well, I would go with this one, because the one that I played with, when you zoomed in, you could almost tell and you could intuit sometimes what the word should be. Well, maybe this is a bad one. but you can zoom in pretty close and to really analyze the words.
Okay. So one of the other really nice things about From the Page is that it's to a pretty good degree transformable. So you can have this layout here, right? So we've got the image of the page from the oral history that was typed in the 1970s. And we've got this box on the right where we will be typing what is shown in this picture. But if you don't like this configuration, you can go to the layout and you can change how these two things are ordered. So I personally like having the image at the top. It makes it a little bit bigger. And so now I can type when the little box that I'm looking for is on the bottom. So we've got Angela Varsano, 6/13/72. And then we know that this is Charingo. So we've got Joe Charnigo. Okay, and so you might notice that this word looks a little difficult to read. It probably says school, but if you didn't know that it said school, what you would do in this case, this is actually maybe a good example to start with. What you could do is if there is a word that you cannot read, you can just put a bracket, you can put a question mark, and you put another bracket. And so when I go back and I read through these and I double check them, when I see that bracket and a question mark in a bracket, that's a kind of tip off to me that there's a word there that I should really try and pay attention to. And maybe I can read it. But so I'm familiar with this oral history. That's the other thing, is once you've been doing this for a while, there's themes that certain people continue to talk about. So this is going to be school, and then painted. In this case, I can't totally tell, so I'll put a question mark, but I can see that it ends with LLS. So you can put a bracket and a question mark for a full word. You can put a bracket and a question mark for a couple letters. So we've got LLS and then a comma, and then it looks like it says and a. Put maybe another couple question marks. Can't totally read that. All right, and then here we've got of wooden board. Looks like we've got a semicolon, or maybe just a comma. Oh, which, and then here we'll hit enter because we're on to the next page. Which were would make sense, so were, and then OLED, probably oiled, but in this case we can put O bracket question mark bracket LED close question mark. So you get the idea. If you're working on a page where the text is really difficult to decipher, this is a pretty difficult one. Most of them are not like this. But so that would be an approach to kind of a difficult page. So at this point, I've started this, but I haven't finished it. And I want to make sure that the program saves the work that I've done. So in this case, I'll hit save. Now, if I had finished transcribing the whole page, I would hit the done button. So right now, save is just going to save my progress. And so someone else can come along and pick up where I left off. But if I hit the done button, it'll tell people that this page is completely done being transcribed. No one else has to work on it.
Can everyone see those buttons? The way my screen is configured, they're hiding behind the speakers, but they're up on the upper right of the page, upper right hand of the page.
Yes. So upper, yeah, there you go. Okay, so you'll notice that the oral histories are in alphabetical order, and we only get to G on this page. So you'll notice that there's a next button at the very bottom of the page, and so that will take you to the rest of the alphabet. So here's more G's, we get into the H's, we're down to M's, N's, and so again, more and more oral histories to transcribe. But so let's go ahead and try out this one. Let's do this page. Yeah, so this is more the general quality that we see. Image at the top. Okay, so Dennis Mercier, 8172, Teddy Shane. And so what these names mean, and the reason that we want to record them, is that typically the person who was doing the interview is going to be the person at the very top. So in this case, Dennis Mercier is the person who's conducting the interview. Below that, we have the date. And then below that, we have the person that they are interviewing. So at this point, they were interviewing Teddy Shane. We want to make sure that we do include that information because sometimes in some of the oral histories, it will be one person. Sometimes it will be that person and their spouse. Sometimes it'll be that person, their spouse, and the neighbor. And so having those, the names, particularly of the people who are being interviewed, is really important for keeping track of who was saying what. So here we see when a person who chewed tobacco got cut, all they had to do, enter, was put the plug of tobacco over the cut. So you'll notice that in the original transcription, plug of tobacco over the cut was underlined. For our purposes, we're not worried that much about underlining, and it's a little tedious to do in the oral histories themselves. So you don't have to worry about underlining. So it kept out infection and burned worse than hydrogen peroxide. So there you go. Another thing, as we're typing these, if you don't, Bodhi, I guess this would also kind of relate to your preferences. But looking at these oral histories, I don't think that the lines really make that big of a difference. So if we wanted, to ignore the lines, do you think that would be okay?
Yeah, I think it's fine. We're trying to create a searchable document. Okay. So the actual the words themselves are important. I guess not the punctuation or the order, the way it's set on the page.
Okay. So yeah, so you'll see that in this case, there are no more words on this page. So we have transcribed this whole page. So in this case, this is when we will hit the done button. So it'll tell you, did you see the little flash of green at the top that said saved? I can do it again. Right at the top, it says saved. So that's just letting you know that it has been saved. It's really important that you either click the save or the done button, because if you just X out of the screen without saving or hitting the done button, it will not save what you've been working on. So it's really vitally important that you press one of those buttons. Okay, so one of the other major questions that I've gotten so far with regards to the Eckley oral histories has to do with images. And so I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what this might look like as you're going through the oral histories and what you should do. So again, we want this to be searchable. But at the same time, we've got these pictures. So I'm not expecting anyone to, try and draw out the pictures in the transcription box, but instead providing some kind of description of the picture and specifically saying that it is a drawing of, and then what it shows. So this is a school building. But it's also showing the inside configuration of the classes. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you could have a more detailed description of the drawing if you wanted. I could have mentioned that it's the downtown school building along Church Alley. But it's up to you. But truly, if we can just have a description of what exactly that image is, it'll be really helpful. And then you can see in this instance that there's additional writing below that image. And so here we have added that transcription below the image. All right. So one of the other things that you'll notice with this oral history is that the sentence cuts off at the end of the page. So that's part of the reason that some of these oral histories can drag on for many, many pages is that there's lots of sentences, lots of long stories. And so go ahead and you just want to capture all of the information on this page. You don't need to check the next page and then bring text back. This is just a reflection of what is on this particular page. All right, and that's really all that there is to it. You can transcribe one page and be done. You can, go to the next page and just keep transcribing if that's what you want to do. And again, it's entirely a volunteer project, so we're very grateful for any and all help that you're willing to lend.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Let's see. So can we fix punctuation or any spelling to make it more readable? Or before I started, we were trying to be consistent with exactly as it is written. But the one I'm working on, I mean, I've left it as is, but it would be better maybe with some actual punctuation and structure.
Yeah, so Bodhi, that's going to be your call. What would you prefer?
Well, I would try and keep it as close as possible as you can. I know there's going to be some some spellings that aren't words and phrases that don't make a lot of sense. But I think if a researcher is trying to look for a certain type of phrase or something, they'll be able to find it if it's more exact. I mean, more exact as it was typed. I mean, the transcriptions themselves were typed after they were tape recorded. So we're not creating sort of a primary, I mean, it's still a primary document, but I mean, we're not creating that first sort of interpretation of what the people were saying. But I think for the purposes of a future researcher, trying to keep it as close as we can as possible would be best.
Just another option, if there's something that is so badly misspelled that it's going to impact maybe potentially the searchability, is in the same way that in brackets we can put a question mark. You can also, after you've typed out exactly how the word is spelled on the page, you can put in brackets what you think that word should actually say. And then that captures both the original text and maybe what they intended.
That sounds good, yeah. So Janice, you have done a couple pages already, or some pages?
Yes, maybe 10 or so pages.
Wow.
It's really fun. I'm having a great time and making great discoveries. But the one I'm working on, it could be like a huge long paragraph and there's no punctuation, so that's why I was wondering about making it more readable. But it's great. I think it's pretty user friendly. I just started and it's really terrific. And I did honestly find who has to be my great grandfather, and I've checked with the census to see who was living where. It is just shocking.
Wow.
Totally big surprise.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so that actually does remind me of one other thing. So if you are working and you run into an issue, or you have a question, you can always, oh yeah, absolutely. So you can write a note to me, and I get notified about the notes. I don't respond immediately. It often takes me a couple days. I actually responded on a different page about what to do with the notes. But yeah, so you can always ask questions, and then I'll come back and respond to those.
I do have one other question. Some of the pages that I did not attempt, it wasn't a picture, but the information was written kind of in columns and there were lines drawn in. And how do we do that to try to, I can't figure out how I would.
Do you know which oral history you were working on?
No, this was on the ones I wasn't. I went through and I started going, oh, well, I can't do that one because I don't know how to format this. So that's why I went,
Oh,
that didn't have that. But I know there are many that have things drawn like in the columns.
in columns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, did it look like an index almost? Like did it have, I've been trying to go through and remove the indexes where I see them.
I'm not sure. I have to dig through. And that's the thing. I was surprised because that first picture didn't look like that. It was once I got into it, was paging through. And then I just thought, oh, I'm not gonna touch that one.
Oh, yeah. So so the picture on this page that I'm looking at right now, the website just kind of randomly selects a page from all of the pages in the oral history. Yeah, so absolutely. Sometimes if you
I've
open
been working on this one actually, Feisner. I jumped in a few pages into it.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, but this was not the one with the columns.
Right.
Okay,
it was more readable. I thought, okay, I could do this.
well, so I suppose those ones with columns, again, if you're struggling, if it looks like something that you just don't want to deal with, absolutely just move on to another page. And then me and my students can come back and revisit some of these more difficult pages at another time. But yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for working on this. And I'm so happy to hear that, you know, potentially making family discoveries. Are there other questions?
Has anyone else been doing these?
I haven't been working on Feisner, but I was working on one of the M ones. Can't remember how to pronounce the name.
Yeah, they can be tricky. Oh, we've got Maloney or Marshlick.
Marshlick, that's the one I was working on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, and so this actually brings up a really great great point. So so some of the oral histories are kind of a condensed, the people who did this in the 1970s went back through and kind of condensed the essence of the conversation into a paragraph. In other cases, like this one, we get the actual verbatim conversation between the interviewee and the interviewer. And so this is where keeping that the AV or the MM is extremely important. Because of course, what the interviewer says is going to be a little less important than what the interviewee says in this case. So we can see that Verasano is interviewing Mary Marshlick, and so AV is going to be A Verasano, and MM is going to be Mary Marshlick. So if you encounter pages that have initials next to them, absolutely make sure that you include those initials. So what has your experience been so far? Have you come across any interesting things in the Marshlick oral history?
Well, there was one where they were talking about curtains for about an entire page. And then also you just passed the one, it was gas lamps. They were just spending entire pages just talking about gas lamps and curtains. It was definitely interesting seeing some of these conversations going down. It's a lot of rambling.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Yeah, again, you know, the level of detail in these descriptions of what life was like are really incredible. I remember at one point I was reading an oral history that was saying that they would use, it was like flour sacks they would buy certain brands of flour sacks because to make clothes out of. They would use the flour inside the sack and then they would make clothes out of it. And so they started buying a specific brand of flour because it had the prettiest sack. And so, you know, I'm an archaeologist by training, but these oral histories add you know, the joy of people, you know, the decisions that went into why they were buying that brand of flour. I would never have guessed that it was because it had the prettiest flour sack. So yeah, well, I'm glad that that it's interesting. Oh yeah, here we go. What kind of curtains? Dark green.
Yeah, now I remember it was over like 2 pages. It started on that page 4, and then it went over onto this page 5 underneath, where they were just talking about the material, the color, and the different like just the different styles of curtains over time. It was really interesting.
Well, a lot of this too is driven by the museum, you know, wanting to be able to recreate these environments, you know, at some point in the future. So trying to capture as much detail about these people's lives and what their houses look like then helps the museum then recreate those environments and places later on. So I think a lot of the questions might have been driven by these longer term goals of understanding and recreation.
Definitely, yeah, you see that in the in some of the sects. You see the motive driven questions based on what the museum is looking for.
Great.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, thank you for typing all of this.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else have questions or thoughts or comments, concerns? So we're on this phase of the project is going to last for about 3 months, and a lot of that has to do with the hosting of the project on this website. So we're hoping to find some way to keep it going. It's rather pricey, so we're very fortunate that Camille was able to arrange with her colleagues down there, sort of letting us piggyback on on their project. And Harold, I don't know if you know of anybody working with this. I think Camille said there's only one other group in Pennsylvania that's using this particular software package, and they're at Penn.
I don't know of anyone using this, but I do have a few students who are doing similar projects for the Schuylkill County Historical Society. Maybe I can kind of lure them in.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's really the best part, I think, about the website is that truly anywhere that you can get online, you can also help transcribe oral histories. So it's not limited at all to Pennsylvania or Northeast Pennsylvania. Actually, one of the best transcribers on a separate project that I was working on is based out of Minnesota. So yeah, she's never been to the site that I'm working at now. She doesn't have any connection to it, but she just really enjoys transcribing things. So yeah, absolutely. You can recruit friends, recruit neighbors, recruit long lost cousins.
Oh, great. And if you get stuck at any point and have any questions, you could shoot me an email. It was listed in the article, and if you go to the Eckley website, my email is on there. I will put it in the chat here. Let me see.
Bodie or Camille, Helen, can you just send the name of the site again? Unfortunately, I didn't take notes. The name of the site that we have to click on to start transcribing.
Yeah, Helen, if you go to the Eckley website, right at the top is a button you can click for the Eckley transcription project, and that'll take you to a page on the website that has the link there too. Okay,
thank you. And the other thing is, Camille, you said about recruiting people. Do you have to clear the person who is going to be doing the transcribing? Because I know in the past when I've done oral histories, you had to have a release, the person sign a release that this oral history would only be used by so-and-so for this and this purpose. So if we're just recruiting people randomly, do they have to be cleared by you or Bodie?
No.
Excellent question.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's purely just so we're not creating any more oral histories. This is purely transcribing the oral histories that were done in the 1970s. So if we were doing more oral histories, we would need to sign releases. But for just typing down the things that other people said, anyone can do it. You don't have to ask my permission. You can truly just get onto the website and go for it.
Okay, thank you.
And everything is reviewed as well. So if somebody gets on here and does some things that are inappropriate, we would review it and see it before it becomes part of the public record. So that we have some flexibility. If we can be very broad in who we invite to the project, and if something happens, unfortunately happens, we have a way to control before it goes public.
And my last question is, if there is something that is said in a different language and that language was transcribed as it was said, do you want us to put in brackets what that translation should be?
Oh,
I wouldn't. I would just try and transcribe exactly as it is. Maybe you could put a note down at what you think it may be at the bottom, but I think the idea is we want to keep it so it's searchable as it was produced.
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
And there may
and
be cases where I'm sorry, Camille, there may be cases where the transcriber was able to put an explanation in or a definition of the word.
Yeah, I was going to say I have seen some Slovak in the oral histories, but usually it's the names of holidays. So not necessarily something that needs to be translated, but yeah, interesting spellings. So, all right, yeah, and so of course you can always reach out to Bodie if you have questions. I can add my email, Bodie, if you think that would be.
Sure, if you want to, yeah.
Okay. Or of course, we saw on the transcription page where there was that questions and notes box, it's at the bottom of every single page. And so that's also a way to contact me through the transcription platform. But yeah, I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for your interest and for coming tonight. And yeah, I'm so incredibly excited about revealing these stories. There's yeah, just so much history locked in these pages, and I think that through some hard work we can make them more accessible. So,
although it's not that hard. It's fun work too. Well, great. Well, thank you all for coming. And then we keep everyone updated. It's where we are. And then I'm not sure when all of this work will be made public. The state archives, everything will be residing with the state archives. We may be able to put some things on our website. But the state archives is undergoing a massive move. They built a new building. So it may be a year or two before things get public. But this is great work, and I want to thank you all too. It's making Eckley more accessible, and the stories that we learned from Eckley are stories that were repeated across the country. So this will be invaluable to people that are doing histories of places like Eckley in Pennsylvania. So thank you all again very much. And like I said, feel free to shoot us an email anytime if you've got a question or a comment. Encourage your friends to join, and this will be fun. Maybe at some point we can have a program at Eckley where everybody gets to read a page of what they transcribed. So that should be great. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Camille. And keep an eye out. Camille's got a book coming out pretty soon about the roles of women in Eckley and Pardeesville, part of her dissertation. And as soon as it's published, we'll have copies at the Eckley store.
well, thank you, Bodie. All right. Well, thanks everyone, and have a good night.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you.